My goal starting forward is teaching people how to start their own business, and it doesn't matter if it's What is going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we're talking about my camera evolution and how I went from a beginner to a pro. If you guys haven't subscribed already and liked this video, please subscribe and like. And without further ado, let's begin. This is my first camera, a GoPro Hero 4. Before I even started with a DSLR camera or a mirrorless camera, I had a GoPro Hero 4, and that's where everything started. So at this point, I never did any professional work. It was just a hobby camera. My dad actually won a contest, or I don't know exactly what it was, but he ended up winning a GoPro Hero 4. So he didn't really care much about it because he isn't a camera guy. He never filmed. He doesn't even film with his phone. So he just decided to give it to me. At that time, I also didn't even know what I wanted to do with that camera, but hey, I had it in my hands. So I just started to one day turn on that camera and just film anything and everything. Little did I know at that time that my life was gonna change forever. And what do I mean by that? Well, if it wasn't for that first camera, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, where I'm able to establish my own business. I've had a lot of clients come along my way ever since 2018. And I've been freelancing for the past almost 7 years. So long story short, the only camera I had at the time when I was in college was a GoPro Hero 4. Now, of course, there's very little you can do with that camera. So I went into Marketplace and I got my first camera because I needed a camera for college. And that's where my first DSLR comes in. This is my first official camera. It's the Canon Rebel T3i. And at the time, I already believed that that camera was already outdated, but I really needed a camera in college to start doing my projects. So for $250, I believe, this puppy came along and I fell in love even more. So I got it with the kit lens. At least that's what I think it is. It's an 18-135. And that was my first camera ever that I had to actually learn the ins and outs, because it's a manual camera. Well, it's not a manual camera. It comes in autofocus, but obviously I was going to school for film. So we started learning everything from manual, ISO, shutter, aperture, and all that good stuff. With this camera, I got my very first, if I'm not mistaken, tripod. The person who sold me this camera said, "Hey, do you have a tripod? Do you want a tripod?" I said, "No, I don't have one." He's like, "Here, go ahead, keep it." And it was a plastic tripod at that time. It's so bad. I think I broke it like in the first week or so because it was just so flexible. But that's what initially got me with $250, $300, let's just say. Now, what happened when I first bought that camera? I was nervous, I was excited, I was anxious to start honestly just creating, because at this time I didn't even think about starting my own business, right? I was just focusing head on school, making sure every project came out good. And it wasn't until my first official gig, and I shot my first wedding with this camera for $900. I clearly remember $900. It was an 9-hour day, I believe. So I think I started charging at $100 an hour per hour. And let me just tell you that I have so many people ask me, what's the best camera out there? What's the best software? What's the best tripod? X, Y, and Z. And all I can say is it doesn't matter what journey you're in. Use whatever you have at the moment, because I knew that I didn't have the best camera out there, the latest and greatest at the time, but I was just so hungry to start and shoot my very first film or my very first paid gig. And keep in mind, I was already going to school at this time, so I was learning. I just wanted to get out in the field, in the real world, you could say. And when I first landed on my first paid gig, obviously I took it. So I took this wedding, I shot it. In fact, my client, they loved it. So with that feedback, obviously I got more pumped. But just so you know, you guys, you don't need the latest and greatest. The T3i is what I was shooting at that time. Man, throwback. So just so you know, you are gonna make mistakes. There's no such thing as a perfect world. There's no such thing as a perfect shooter. We all have to go through all these mistakes. Either not composing a film, a photo right, either not lighting a perfect scenario. Nothing is ever gonna be perfect. So we have to learn, we have to go through those mistakes to get to where we're at today. And up till today, 6, 7, 8 years later, I'm still learning, I'm still enjoying the process. So don't be afraid to begin this journey. So with that being said, I met a young man at that time, and he was probably 28. I was 21. He invited me to work along him and shadow him by shooting wedding photos at a wedding chapel. And if you don't know, these wedding chapels here in Las Vegas, they're just go, 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 and go. So we were shooting probably like 10 to 15 weddings daily. So that helped me a lot because I still didn't know properly how to expose my settings, shutter speed, ISO. So what I did is, I do clearly remember, and it's pretty funny looking back, right? So what I used to do is, the very beginning of the wedding, which is the most important part in my experience, which is the ceremony itself, is I would shoot that section in auto, right? And since I didn't know what I was looking in the back of my screen, I was like, okay, we'll just shoot auto, boom, 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 boom. And it wasn't until we got into portrait sessions, which I would shoot that half of the portion in auto, and then I would switch my settings to manual to kind of get a feel for what is it like to set your own settings. And as I was looking in the back of my screen, I realized, hey, why is it super overexposed? Why is it super dark? I didn't understand anything. But it wasn't until one wedding passed, another wedding passed, my 15th wedding passed, because we were doing like 10 to 15 weddings in a day, technically, ceremonies. Not a full-length wedding, but still. And then I started realizing, okay, why is the shutter speed so important? What is an ISO? And that's exactly how I learned. On the spot, on the job. And if you don't know me, that's me. I like to learn as I go on the spot. Scary, yes, I know, but that's just who I am. As time passed, I wasn't really making a lot of money at the chapel. At this time, it was just like a small little part-time. I was still in college, and as I was taking it serious, I believe 19 years old at that time, or 20. Had like a semi-part-time job. I knew that this was something I really wanted to do. And since I didn't have enough money to upgrade my camera, my dad did officially buy me, in that time, probably the best camera for filmmakers. I'm beyond grateful. I'm the happiest son in the world, and grateful because I know that not everybody has this opportunity to have their parents support them. So I'm beyond grateful. And that camera at the time was the Sony A7IV, because I was doing a lot of films at that time. So this camera right over here is the Sony A7IV. This camera I rocked for a solid 4 or 5 years, and it still works. Obviously it works, but I've upgraded my cameras since then. But I kid you not, this camera set the standards, and it made me realize what you can truly do with a power horse of a camera, with just one single camera. So even with that being said, a lot of people think that you need a lot of gear, a lot of cameras, a lot of different camera angles to be able to charge what you have to charge. And that's just a lie, because I have always been a solo shooter, And it depends your style of how you film. Yes, you can shoot with 2 cameras at a time. Yes, you can shoot with 3 cameras at a time. But I shot with 1 camera, and that was just my style of shooting. Now, was it probably the best style of shooting? No, but I got a lot of clients based off of my work, based off how my work looked at that time. And yes, I decided to get a second body, but that came along probably 4 or 5 years after, when I said, you know what, it's time to change and switch it up a bit. But this camera made me so much money, you guys, that everything that I have today is, like I said, it's a blessing, but because initially started with 1 camera. These things last a very long time, and if you're serious about what you're gonna do, an investment comes a long way, you guys. So yes, at that time I believe it was like $1,700, $2,000, let's say. To me, it was a lot. I couldn't afford that, but it's such a blessing, you guys. So what happened after my 4th year mark, after 5-year mark? We're talking about 2023 or 2024, early 2024. I decided to upgrade my camera setups, and the reason why I upgraded my gear was because I was shooting a lot of photography, a lot of portraits, a lot of wedding photos as well, coming from a filmmaker, right? And that doesn't make sense, but I had the A7S II because initially I wanted to be a filmmaker, full-time filmmaker, forget about photography. But people would reach out to me and would tell me, hey Luis, we love your style, can you shoot my wedding photos? I was like, as a filmmaker, you want me to shoot your wedding photos? Kind of like, how did you end up there, correct? But you start realizing you can't let business go if you have an opportunity, correct? So I decided to change my gear and not step down in a way whatsoever, because this new camera that I'm about to talk to you about is, to me, way better advanced, even as a filmmaker, when it's a hybrid camera. And if you don't know what a hybrid camera is, initially a hybrid camera is both photo and video. Not the best photo camera, not the best video camera. So it meets right in between. So that's what I decided to do. I decided to say, you know what? I'm not going to get another video camera if I'm not only shooting video. And I'm not just going to get a photo camera if I'm not going to do photos. So I decided to lean in with this camera. So this is the Sony A7IV. And the camera that you see me film myself at is my A camera. This is my B camera. I have a cage on it, because typically I have a monitor, I have a V mount, I have a heavier lens when I'm filming weddings. So why do I like this camera? And again, sorry about that, guys. There's people on the roof apparently. So the reason why I like this camera, very short. It shoots 24 megapixels, which is more than enough for me. It shoots 4K 60, hence cropped, yes, but I do have a wide angle lens, a 16-35. If for whatever reason I need to shoot cropped, I can zoom out a little bit, but if not, I typically shoot my weddings at 24 frames per second, so it's full frame. It's perfect, you guys. I mean, if I were to recommend a camera today, because a lot of people always ask me, hey, what's the best camera I can get to start my business, or XYZ, this and that, I always lean towards the A7S. I always lean towards the A7IV. We do have an A7S III, but that's the only purpose is to film videos. So the reason why I decided to get 2 bodies this time. So the reason why I went with 2 of these is because I wanted to shoot a different angle when it came to my weddings at the same time. So I found my audience. My business grew because of the wedding industry, and I do like the wedding industry. I've been doing it for the past 7 years. It's something that a lot of people do not desire to do. I don't know if it's because they are scared, nervous, if they think they're gonna mess up. I can see that, but I love it. I've been doing it for 7 years. I don't know how long I'll be doing it still, right? But I do a lot of majority of other projects, but that's like my bread and butter. I have been doing weddings for 7 years. But again, the reason why I got 2 cameras is because cam A usually points, or cam B, it doesn't matter, right? Cam A or cam B is always facing the groom when the bride is coming down the aisle, because I like to get his reactions. But because I stopped going back and forth between the bride and the groom, sometimes I missed either a reaction of his side or a reaction of the father, grandmother, mom, or even the bride. So now I lean on leaving this camera on his reaction at the entire time while the bride is coming down of the aisle, and I'm either handheld on my monopod or on a gimbal, looking at her reactions while she's coming down the aisle. And that's the reason why I decided to get 2 body cameras. After that, it's very rarely when you see me on 2 camera setup throughout the whole ceremony or reception. After that, I typically just put it to the side by the DJ or all my camera gear, and it's not until the toast in the reception when I pull out again my second camera with a 72-200 or a wider like a 24-70, depending on who's speaking. After that is party time, so I'm typically only on 1 camera the entire night. And the lens that I typically use 90% of the time is the 24-70 G Master Mark II. And this lens is a game changer, guys. So previously, the previous 24-70 GM 2.8, still good, no problems with that, but it was a little bit heavier. So you would definitely feel it in your back if you had a strap or if you're just carrying it. It's pretty heavy. This one is not as heavy. For the first time, if somebody hasn't used the 24-70, they'll say that it's heavy, but that's because they haven't tried the first generation. And this is a game changer, you guys. A lot of people are always saying, you don't use primes, Luis, why don't you use primes? And as much as I like primes, I used to get so stressed out having to change my lenses from a 50, 85, or 35, because some places are just very, very close and I couldn't really get that shot that I wanted. So I decided to get a 24-70. I know that I lose a lot in lighting when it comes to aperture from going from a prime lens to a zoom lens, but at the end of the day, you get the shot, you get it done. Your client doesn't really know. It's just personal preferences at this point. Great lens. I recommend prime lenses if you can afford it, or zoom lenses if you can afford it. At the end of the day, it's your shooting style. And to finish off this video, you guys, I do just want to say it doesn't matter how much money you've invested in camera gear. You could buy 2, 3, 4 cameras. You can buy the best lens out there. But it's taught me that passion and dedication means more. If you don't put work in your craft, your work is going to show on its own. So just put your work, emphasize on getting better at what you do every single day. It doesn't matter how long you've been shooting. We can learn from others. We can learn every single day. So don't stop learning. You may say, Luis, you're successful. You've done over 100 weddings. In fact, I stopped counting how many weddings I've done ever since I hit 100, 200 weddings. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know how many weddings I've done. I've been doing this for quite some time. I enjoy it. I love it. But that is one of my biggest advice, is to never stop learning. Be a sponge, absorb, ask questions, hit people up, collaborate. There's other videographers or photographers, wedding photographers, videographers. It doesn't matter what you're doing, what's your niche. Always hit people up, try to contact them, try to collaborate, because that's the best thing you can do. I've always said, it's not who you are, but it's who you know. You may not be the best photographer out there, and you may also not be the best videographer out there, but if you have good connections, that's honestly the biggest thing I can tell you. It's just meet people in your industry. So now that I've been shooting weddings for the past 6-7 years, my goal starting forward is teaching people how to start their own business. And it doesn't matter if it's in the wedding industry, if you want to do portraits, if you want to do engagement shoots, if you want to do films. Moving forward, I'm still going to be filming my weddings. I'm still going to be doing what I'm doing currently, but I've decided to start a new journey. And as you can see this video on YouTube, I probably only have 100 followers at the time. I want to build this community bigger as the year continues. 2025 is a new year to start your own goals. My goal is to grow this channel and help you out. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to comment below. And please, you guys, subscribe if you haven't already, like this video, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.